like to interrupt your weekend to stimulate your J-spot with the deepest dive into what we're talking about most here at JBA. This is Weekend Drop for the J-spot.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Or, depending on your relationship status, maybe just happy Saturday.
Or Happy Singles Awareness Day, which I think is a thing.
It's definitely a thing.
Right. And honestly, even if you are, happily coupled up today, even if you've got the dinner reservations and the flowers are on the way, we really need to talk about a relationship that is, well, it's on the rocks.
Oh, boy.
I mean, it is messy. It is toxic. There are a lot of mixed signals, probably some late night regrets.
Are we about to get into celebrity gossip? Because I have to admit, I did not prepare for that.
Worse. So much worse. We are talking about the American consumer's very complicated relationship with the retail giant Target.
Okay. That makes more sense.
Because, look, it is February 14th, 2026. We are right in the middle of Black History Month. And usually, historically, this is the time when corporations roll out that red, black, and green carpet.
Right. They put on the celebratory music. They highlight Black history. They feature Black creators. It's become a whole corporate calendar event.
It has. But this year, the vibe is just... It's different. It feels tense.
It is incredibly tense. Yeah. And what's interesting is it's not just about what you're seeing on the shelves, though that is a huge part of the visual story here.
A very big part.
It's also about what's happening behind the scenes. In the boardroom, we're seeing what some experts are starting to call cultural whiplash.
Cultural whiplash. I love that term. Even though I hate that we have to use it, it's so visceral you can almost feel it. Right. And we are absolutely going to get into what that means. But to understand why people are so upset right now, why the social media timelines are just on fire, it all started with a sweater.
The sweater.
One specific sweater.
Yeah.
And this is really the hook for the entire story. Just imagine for a second you're walking into Target, you grab your cart, maybe you get your Starbucks, and you're expecting to see, I don't know, some thoughtful history books, maybe some cool art prints, apparel that celebrates resilience or joy.
Usual stuff.
The usual stuff. And instead, you turn the corner into that seasonal aisle and you see a knit sweater. And printed on the front is a giant hair pick and a comb.
Just grooming tools.
Just grooming tools. No context, no art, just a pick and a comb. And that was the spark. Yeah. That was the thing that lit the powder keg on social media just a couple of weeks ago.
It really was.
So we're going to unpack that. But our mission for this deep dive isn't just to make fun of a badly designed sweater, though, I mean, frankly, it probably deserves it.
It does.
We're going to go deep on this fine, fine line between what we call corporate commodification, which is basically virtue signaling for profit, and genuine platforming, which is actually giving space and resources to Black creators.
And that is the absolute crux of it, because as we're going to see, Target is somehow doing both of those things at the exact same time.
At the same time.
And it puts Black consumers, and maybe more importantly, Black entrepreneurs, in this completely impossible position. I mean, do you support the platform that's feeding you, even if you know that same platform is actively dismantling the very support systems it promised you, 5 years ago?
It is the paradox of 2026 in a nutshell. So stick with us. We've got the receipts, we've got the numbers, and I mean real financial numbers, not just, a stock ticker. And we've got the stories of the people who are caught right in the middle of all of this. Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so let's set the scene. It's early February 2026. A TikTok user... His handle is @LoveNate. So, big shout out to Nate. He walks into his local Target, he sees the Black History Month display, and he does what we all do, right? He pulls out his phone.
Of course. And for context, these displays, they're not tucked away in a back corner. This is front and center. This is prime real estate in retail terms. You cannot miss it.
Exactly. You're meant to see it. And he records this video. The camera just pans over the merchandise, and he lands on this sweater, this beige sweater with a black pick and a black comb printed on it. And his commentary is just, it's so simple, but it captures the mood perfectly.
What did he say?
He just asks, so this is what Target does for BHM. And then a second later, a sweater with a pick and comb.
And it went viral, almost instantly?
Immediately. The comment section just exploded. It turned into a full-on roast. People were calling it egregious. But there was one comment that really, really stuck with me, and it goes right back to that relationship analogy I made at the top.
Okay.
A user wrote, and I'm quoting here, "I look at Target like an ex that cheated on me and stole my money."
Wow. That is a visceral reaction. That's not just, I don't like this product. That is a deep sense of personal betrayal.
It's personal. And then another user at The Real Rosso replied to the video saying, "Bro walked into enemy territory wondering why the enemy still looks like the enemy."
Enemy territory. Again, that's That is such strong language.
It's heavy language for a store where, we usually go to buy paper towels and cute throw pillows. This isn't a political rally. It's a big box store.
It is. But let's actually analyze why a simple image of a comb on a sweater triggers that specific word, enemy. Because on the surface, you could, play devil's advocate and say, well, hair culture is a huge part of Black culture. And that's true.
Of course. The Afro pick itself is an iconic symbol of power and identity.
It is iconic.
Yeah.
But context is absolutely everything. When a massive multi-billion-dollar corporation reduces that entire culture with all its history and struggle to just the aesthetic of a comb, without the context of, the politics of Black hair or the discrimination people still face for their hair, the Crown Act exists for a reason.
A very important reason.
When you strip all that away, it reads as a caricature.
It feels like a costume. It feels like they are wearing the culture rather than actually respecting it or understanding it.
Precisely. It feels like a costume. It's reductive. And the big accusation here, which we saw all over the reporting from the Daily Dot and on social media, is performative activism.
Right.
The critics are basically arguing that these are just meaningless tokens. You are selling us back a picture of our own hair tools while, and this is the absolute key to the whole story, while simultaneously retreating from the substantive issues that actually affect Black lives and Black businesses.
Okay, hold on. I want to pause on the sweater itself for just one more second, because I think it's easy for us to sit here and just, laugh at it and say, bad design, next topic.
Sure.
But I want to try and understand the mechanics of how a disaster like this actually makes it onto a physical shelf. Target isn't some small mom and pop shop. They have layers and layers of approval. So how does a sweater with a giant comb slip through all those cracks?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to really get it, you have to understand the difference between design by committee and true cultural competency.
Okay, break that down.
So in a massive retail ecosystem like Target's, a product like that sweater goes through, at minimum, a merchant team, a design team, a sourcing team, and a compliance team.
So we're talking dozens of eyeballs saw this design before it got approved.
Dozens. Maybe even hundreds if you count all the sample reviews and factory approvals. But, and this is the key insight from a lot of industry insiders, who were those eyes attached to? This brings us right to the representation gap in corporate buying offices. If the room that is approving the Black History Month collection is, say, 90% white, or if the few Black employees who are in that room don't feel what we call psychological safety to speak up and say, hey, this looks like a caricature, then you get the comb sweater.
Psychological safety. Define that for me in this specific context, because sometimes that can sound like, HR buzzword soup.
It can sound soft, but I promise you, it has very hard economic consequences. Amy Edmondson from Harvard Business School basically coined the term. It means, can I suggest a new idea, ask a tough question, or critique a strategy without the fear of being humiliated, punished, or just labeled as difficult or not a team player?
Right.
So if you are the junior buyer and you're the only Black person in that meeting, and the vice president of apparel says, I love this retro comb look, it feels so 70s chic, are you going to risk your next promotion, maybe even your career, to say, actually, sir, with all due respect, that looks like something out of a minstrel show?
Probably not. You're going to nod, you're going to smile, and you're going to approve the purchase order.
Exactly. And that is why that sweater is so fascinating to me. It is a physical manifestation of a broken internal culture. It is proof on a clothing rack that despite 5 years of DEI initiatives and pledges, the actual decision-making rooms likely haven't changed enough to catch a culturally tone-deaf product before it hits the floor.
So it's not just a bad drawing.
It's a systemic failure of checks and balances.
It's like a check engine light for their entire internal diversity strategy.
That's a perfect analogy. And remember, retail works on very long lead times. That sweater was likely designed and approved 12, maybe even 18 months ago.
Which would put it squarely in late 2024, early 2025.
Bingo! Right as the corporate rollback was really kicking into high gear.
And that is the perfect pivot. Because you're right, if this was 2020 or 2021, people might have just rolled their eyes, posted a funny meme, and maybe bought the sweater ironically. But this is 2026. The context has completely changed.
Right. You absolutely have to look at the timeline to understand the depth of the anger. This is not happening in a vacuum.
So let's go back in time. It's 2020, the George Floyd era. Target is headquartered in Minneapolis, which was ground zero for the protests and the pain. What was their corporate vibe back then?
Oh, it was all in. I mean, they were positioning themselves as leaders in the corporate response. They committed $2 billion, that's billion with a B, to spend with Black-owned businesses by the end of 2025.
A huge, huge number.
A massive commitment. They created a whole program called REACH, which stood for Racial Equity Action and Change. They were, for all intents and purposes, the darlings of corporate DEI. They were setting the standard for other companies to follow.
So that was the high watermark. Now, let's fast forward to January 2025, just over a year ago. What happened?
The rollback. The retreat. And it wasn't slow or subtle. It was swift. In January 2025, Target officially announced the effective end of those 3-year DEI goals. And they didn't just quietly let them expire. They made really significant structural changes.
Okay, so give us the specifics. What actually changed on the ground?
Well, according to some really great reporting from Essence and HR Dive, they ended a number of specific programs that were designed to support and onboard Black-owned brands and suppliers. So the pipeline was being narrowed.
Okay.
They also stopped releasing their external reports on diversity metrics. So the public transparency on their progress, that's gone.
So we can't even check their work anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they even changed the name of the internal team. It went from supplier diversity to supplier engagement.
Supplier engagement. Wow, that is some of the most corporate linguistic gymnastics I have ever heard.
It's what the PR experts call rebranding the storytelling. And maybe the most shocking move, at least for the LGBTQ plus community, was when they ceased participation in the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index. I mean, this was a company that used to plaster those 100% scores all over their career pages.
They were so proud of that. So the natural question is, why? Why do a complete 180-degree turn when you are supposedly the leader in this space? We keep saying things like Target got scared or it's politics, but corporations don't really have feelings. They have general counsels and chief financial officers. What specifically changed in the legal and political landscape between 2020 and 2026 to make the letters DEI so toxic?
We have to get really surgical here because it wasn't just one thing. It was more like a pincer movement from a few different directions. But the nuclear bomb that really changed the game was the Supreme Court decision in Students for Fair Admissions v. Harvard back in 2023.
Right, the decision that effectively ended affirmative action in college admissions.
Exactly.
But that's college. I mean, Target sells diapers and patio furniture. What's the connection?
Law is all about precedent. And conservative legal groups like Stephen Miller's America First Legal immediately took that precedent and ran with it. They sent letters to the boards of Fortune 500 companies, and Target was definitely on that list, basically saying, the logic that the Supreme Court applied to Harvard now applies to you. If you have programs that give preference to Black suppliers or Black employees based on their race, we will sue you for discrimination.
So the very program that was designed to fight historical discrimination is now being framed as discrimination.
That's the playbook. It's the reverse racism legal argument, but now it's weaponized with the Supreme Court precedent behind it. And if you're the general counsel at Target, your entire job is risk mitigation.
Right. You don't want to be in court.
You don't. So they looked at those legal threats, and then they looked over at their shareholders. And this is the second prong of that pincer, the fiduciary duty argument.
Remind us what that is.
So fiduciary duty is the legal requirement for a company's board to act in the best financial interest of its shareholders. Activist investors and conservative groups started arguing that woke capital, investing in DEI, was actually losing the company money through boycotts and political blowback.
So they're arguing that by funding these programs, the board was actually breaching its legal duty to make money for shareholders.
Exactly. So if you're a Target executive in 2025, you're getting threatened with lawsuits from the right for discrimination, and you're getting threatened with lawsuits from your own shareholders for wasting money.
And at the same time, you have influencers like Robbie Starbuck on social media attacking your stock price and calling for boycotts over things like the Pride collection.
It was a three-front war.
Yeah.
And Target, it seems, surrendered. They moved into what a lot of people are calling green hushing, or in this case, maybe diversity hushing. They didn't necessarily want to stop all the work, but they absolutely had to kill the vocabulary around it to stop the lawsuits.
And that's where supplier diversity becomes the much safer, much more vanilla supplier engagement. It's legal camouflage.
It's a survival tactic. But to the consumer who was promised that $2 billion, it looks and feels like a profound betrayal.
But that calculation, that's exactly where the cultural whiplash comes in, right? That term you mentioned.
Yes. That's a term used by Jasmine Hartmeyer, who is a brand strategist at a firm called Chemistry Cultura. And she explains that consumers today are incredibly informed. They have TikTok, they have Google, they read the news, they see this corporate flip-flop happening in real time.
They have the receipts.
They have all the receipts. So when you spend 5 years saying, we are with you, Black Lives Matter, we're investing $2 billion, and then overnight you pivot and say, actually, we're just doing supplier engagement now, the consumer gets whiplash. The trust is broken.
It's shattered.
It is. And what's so interesting is that not every company did this. I mean, look at a company like Costco.
Oh, Costco held the line on this.
We did.
Huh.
When they got pressure, Costco's board released a statement essentially doubling down, saying that DEI is built into their company's code of ethics, and they weren't changing it.
And what was the result of that?
You had leaders like Reverend Al Sharpton leading a buy-in at a Costco in Harlem.
A buy-in. I love that. It's the complete opposite of boycott.
It is. So it just proves that there can be a reward for corporate courage. But Target chose a different path, a more cautious path, and that brings us right back to that sweater. The reason the sweater feels like it's from enemy territory is because it represents the hollow shell of support that's left after the real structural support has been quietly gutted.
It's like they're saying, we won't give you the loans or the shelf space programs or the data transparency anymore, but hey, here's a picture of a comb.
Precisely.
Okay, but this is where the story gets really, really interesting. And honestly, it gets really complicated because we've been sitting here bashing the comb sweater, and, rightfully so.
It's an easy target, no pun intended.
Right. But if you walk just a few aisles over from that sweater in the same Black History Month display, you see something else entirely. You see products that are actually incredible.
And this is the paradox of the whole situation.
It is, because Target is still selling products from actual Black designers, real people.
Yes.
With real talent and real stories. And if we paint the whole store, the whole program, with that same villain brush, we are erasing them and their work. So I want to take a minute and introduce our listeners to the heroes of this story.
Yes, let's meet them, because their stories are absolutely vital to understanding why this is not a simple black and white issue.
First up, we have Jasmine Foster. She's the founder of a stationery brand called Be Rooted. And get this, she is a former Target employee herself.
Oh, wow. That is such a fascinating detail. So she knows the beast from the inside.
She knows exactly how the system works. She spent over a decade in corporate retail, and she saw the gaps on the shelves firsthand. She realized that in the entire stationery aisle, there was basically no representation. No planners with Black women on the cover, no journals that reflected different skin tones or body shapes.
So she just decided to create it herself.
She created it. And Be Rooted has been a massive success. It's not just a product, it's an affirmation on a notebook.
That's powerful.
Then you have Raven Gibson. Her brand is called Legendary Roots. This is her third year being featured in the Target collection. And she started this brand in her college dorm room.
The classic, amazing entrepreneur story.
I mean, literally printing T-shirts in a dorm. And now she has legendary joggers and apparel on the shelves of Target stores nationwide. Her whole brand focus is on affirmation and style. She talks about how seeing someone out in public wearing one of her shirts creates this instant sense of community.
And that is powerful. I mean, that is genuine platforming. That is taking a small dorm room business and giving it a national scale it could never have achieved on its own.
Absolutely. And we cannot forget Monica Ahananu. She's an illustrator and an artist. Her work is just, it's all about vibrant, bold color theory. It's beautiful. And she shared this one story that really just, it hit me right in the feels.
Okay.
She said her father, who is an African immigrant, finally forgave her for not being a doctor when he walked into a Target and saw her art on a huge display.
That is the ultimate validation for so many immigrant kids right there.
Right. It's like, okay, you're not a doctor, but you're in Target, so you've officially made it.
But that story, as funny as it is, it highlights something so crucial. For these creators, this isn't just about sales figures. It's about visibility. It's about taking up space in mainstream America.
Hitting up space.
Yes. In a world where Black creativity is so often marginalized or co-opted, having your name, your face, and your art on the shelf of a major retailer like Target is a profound form of validation. Blavity described it as a kind of love language.
And we also have the winners of the HBCU Design Challenge, right?
Yeah.
Students like Kaylin Coleman from Howard and Nat Fields from Morehouse, they're getting their designs manufactured and sold nationwide while they're still in college. I mean, that is life-changing stuff.
It is. And this is precisely where the conflict arises for the consumer. Because you look at Kaylin and Nat and Raven and Jasmine,
Yeah.
they are doing the work. They are creating genuine, authentic, culturally rich products. This is not a comb on a sweater. This is art. This is community.
So the big question becomes, does the corporate rollback of DEI policy in the boardroom taint the beautiful work of these individual artists on the shelf?
That is the question of the hour.
I mean, can you as a consumer support the artist without supporting the corporation that is effectively ghosting the Black community on a political and structural level?
It is a brutal question to have to ask because, on one hand, Target is the vehicle. It's the vehicle that allows Monica Hanano's dad to see her success in a tangible way. It's the vehicle that allows Jasmine Foster to scale her business to a level that can create generational wealth.
It's the platform.
It is the platform. But on the other hand, that same vehicle is stripping out the engine that was supposed to help the next Jasmine Foster get there, the next Raven Gibson.
It's like they're keeping the fruit that's already grown, but they're cutting down the tree that grows it.
That is a perfect analogy. They are harvesting the current crop of Black talent because it sells. Black joy sells. Black girl magic is a marketable commodity. But by cutting those internal DEI programs, the supplier diversity teams, the transparency reports, they're making it harder for the soil to be fertile for the future.
So the consumers are left standing in the aisle with this impossible choice. And that leads us directly to the backlash, because a lot of people looked at this paradox and decided, nope, I am not playing this game. And they called for a boycott.
The boycott. Let's unpack it.
Okay, let's really get into the mechanics of this movement, because this wasn't just, an angry hashtag that trended for a day. This was organized.
It was very organized. It started with prominent civil rights attorneys, people like Jelani Hussein and Nikema Levy Armstrong, and it was backed by organizations like We Are Somebody and Until Freedom. So this wasn't just random TikTok users being upset. These were strategic community organizers.
And it escalated very quickly. We saw Reverend Jamal Bryant. He's a Morehouse man, pastor of the massive New Birth Missionary Baptist Church. He called for a very specific action, a Target fast during the period of Lent.
So from Ash Wednesday all the way to Good Friday.
That is a long time. That is 40 days of no Target runs. And according to the organizers, over 100,000 people pledged to join. That is not an insignificant number of shoppers.
It's huge. And the goal was crystal clear. Hit them where it hurts the most, the wallet, the bottom line.
So the big question is, did it work? Let's look at the data. You know we love a good data dive here.
We do. And the numbers they're pretty stark. If you look at Target's stock performance from its peak in January of 2025 to where we are now in early 2026, the stock has dropped 41%.
41%.
It went from around $145 a share down to about $86 a share.
That is almost half the value of the company just gone.
It is a bloodbath for shareholders. But, and as the expert here, I have to add the necessary context, we have to compare this to their peers to see if it was just the boycott or if the whole retail sector was struggling.
Right. Was everyone doing badly, or is this a Target-specific problem?
Well, in that same period, Walmart stock was up 9%. And Dollar General was up 28%. So the discount retailers were actually thriving.
Okay.
Now, to be fair, the home goods retailers like Home Depot and Lowe's, they did see drops around 20% and 13% respectively. So the sector was definitely soft. But Target's drop was more than double that of Home Depot.
Double. So there's absolutely something specific to Target happening here.
Absolutely. And while, we can't scientifically attribute every single percentage point of that drop to the boycott, the investor sentiment is undeniable. Investors hate uncertainty. And Target has been constantly in the headlines for one culture war after another. First, the Pride controversy in 2025, now the DEI rollback and the Black History Month boycott in 2026. It makes the brand feel toxic and unstable to investors who just want a safe bet.
So on paper, it looks like the boycott was a massive success. It punished the corporation. It sent a loud and clear message.
On paper, yes. It achieved its primary goal.
But, and this is the but that honestly keeps me up at night on thinking about this, there is always collateral damage. And I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier because it genuinely terrified me. You hinted that if I, as a consumer, boycott Target, Raven Gibson, the woman making those legendary Reach joggers, might have to pay Target back. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Target bought the product, right? The transaction is done.
Laughs darkly. Oh, if only you were that simple.
Yeah.
Welcome to the dark arts of the Vendor Compliance Manual.
You are making retail sound like the mafia.
In some ways, it's not that far off. Look, in the world of wholesale retail, especially when you're dealing with smaller, independent brands, the power dynamic is incredibly lopsided. There are three scary terms you need to learn today: guaranteed sale, markdown money, and chargebacks.
Okay, break them down for us. Let's start with guaranteed sale. What is that?
This is a clause that's really common when a retailer takes on a new, unproven vendor. Target might say, okay, Legendary Roots, we love your joggers. We'll place an order and put them in 500 stores, but this is a guaranteed sale. That means if they don't sell through by, say, April 1st, we reserve the right to return all of the unsold inventory to you for a full refund.
Wait a second. So the small business owner has to just keep that cash sitting in a bank account just in case the product doesn't sell?
Ideally, yes. But the reality is they've usually already spent that money on manufacturing the next batch of shirts for the next season. So if a boycott happens and 90% of that inventory doesn't move and Target issues what's called an RTV, a return to vendor, that small business can become insolvent overnight.
That's horrifying. Okay, what is markdown money? That sounds slightly less terrifying.
It's even more common and maybe more insidious. Let's say the boycott slows down sales but doesn't stop them completely. Target's merchant team decides, we need to clear this space for the next seasonal product. So they put a big 50% off sticker on all the joggers.
Great for the customer who gets a deal.
Great for the customer, but terrible for Raven. Because in many of these vendor contracts, the retailer demands that the brand cover the cost of that markdown in order to protect the retailer's precious profit margin.
You have got to be kidding me. So Target protects their own profit margin by literally taking money out of the small business's pocket.
Correct. They will just deduct that markdown money from the final check they owe the vendor at the end of the season.
Unbelievable. And the last one, chargebacks.
The silent killer. This is the death by 1,000 cuts. If a shipment arrives at the distribution center and the shipping label is 1 inch too far to the left on the box, that's a fine. If the box is the wrong grade of cardboard, that's a fine. If the purchase order number is missing a digit, that's a fine. $500 here, $1,000 there. Big retailers often use chargebacks as a secondary revenue stream.
Wow.
So when we talk about a Target fast, we have to understand that the inventory sitting on those shelves isn't an asset for the Black creator. It's a ticking time bomb of financial liability.
So when an entrepreneur like Tabitha Brown posts that video asking, if we all decide to stop supporting, they can remove them from the shelves, then what happens? She isn't speaking metaphorically. She is looking at a balance sheet and a vendor contract.
She is looking at a contract that puts almost all of the financial risk on her, the small creator, and all of the power in the hands of the multi-billion-dollar retailer.
Yeah.
Melissa Butler from the Lip Bar has said the exact same thing. And the owner of Beautiful Curly Me, which is a Black-owned doll brand, she put it so clearly. She said, if you don't buy our products in Target, they will cancel us.
Wow.
And she made the point that, having dolls on a website is great, but having a beautiful black doll on a shelf in a mass retailer where a little girl can just walk by with her mom and see it, that is a different kind of visibility. You cannot replicate that on an Instagram ad.
It's mainstreaming. It's sending the message, we belong here. Our stories belong here.
Exactly. So the boycott creates this absolutely terrible paradox. The very mechanism that is designed to fight for Black equity on a macro level, the boycott, is potentially destroying the immediate tangible manifestation of Black equity, which is the Black-owned businesses on the shelf.
It is a catch-22 from hell.
It is. And it forces you as a consumer to ask, who are we really punishing here? The CEO of Target is still going to get his golden parachute. The stock might drop, but the company will survive. But for a small business like Legendary Roots, one bad season at Target could be the end of the entire brand.
That is so heavy. It really, really changes how you look at that call for a Target fast. It's not just a simple protest. It's a potential death sentence for these small brands we claim to want to support.
And that's why you saw some nuance in the community response. You had some people saying, okay, boycott the store, but make a special trip to go in and buy only the Black-owned brands. But that's a really complicated message to get across to 100,000 people.
It's like, go into the store, put on blinders, buy the joggers, and then leave immediately.
But also, it's a complicated set of instructions for a grocery run.
Okay, so we've looked at the viral moment, the corporate retreat, the heroes on the shelf, and now the brutal financial reality of the boycott. So where do we possibly go from here? What is the future of this relationship? Is DEI as we knew it just? Is it dead?
That is the big question everyone is asking. Is it dead or is it just in witness protection?
Yeah, witness protection. I like that.
I'm serious. We talk about how supplier diversity became supplier engagement. We mentioned how SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management, which is a huge deal in the HR world, is advising companies to drop the E for equity from their acronyms.
Right, because the word equity sounds a little too much like wealth redistribution for some people, and it sets off alarm bells.
Exactly. It scares people and it attracts lawsuits. So the experts, like Jasmine Hartmeyer, who we mentioned earlier, are advising their corporate clients to rebrand the storyteller.
Which means what exactly?
Keep doing the work, but change the language you use to describe it. Don't call it DEI. Call it business engagement. Call it talent acquisition strategy. Fly under the radar. Avoid the tripwire that the acronym has become.
So it's a corporate survival tactic.
It is. And the hope, I think, from the optimistic side, is that companies like Target will still invest in these communities and these brands because, let's be honest, it is still good business. Black consumers spent an estimated $26 million a day at Target in 2024. You simply cannot ignore that demographic.
You can't. Money talks.
Money talks louder than anything. So the Black Beyond Measure marketing campaign, that still exists. The beautiful displays, they still exist. But the internal structural goals, the things that actually hold the company accountable to its promises, those seem to be gone, or at least hidden.
And what about that original $2 billion investment? Is that still happening? What's the status of that?
It is incredibly murky. Some sources and reports say they've backtracked on that commitment. Others, like a report from Praise DC, say that they are still set to invest or are working on it. The transparency is gone, so we just don't know for sure. And that ambiguity is a huge part of the problem.
So for the shopper, for the person listening to this right now, maybe getting ready to run their weekend errands, what is the choice? How do you navigate this?
It really comes down to your personal theory of change. There are two main paths.
Okay, lay them out for us.
Option A is what I would call the starve the beast approach. You believe that Target has shown its true colors by rolling back its promises, and any dollar you spend in that store is a vote for that corporate behavior. So you walk away. You boycott. Even if it hurts the Black brands in the short term, you're playing the long game for corporate accountability.
Okay, that makes sense. What's option B?
Option B is the tactical support approach. You believe that Jasmine Foster and Raven Gibson winning is the victory. You believe that keeping Black products on the shelves of white-owned corporations is a form of resistance in and of itself. So you go in, you specifically buy the legendary Roots joggers, you buy the Be Rooted journal, and you do everything you can to make sure those founders succeed, regardless of what the corporation's HR policy is named this week.
Man, neither of those options feels perfectly satisfying, does it?
Welcome to 2026. There are no clean victories anymore. It's all about difficult trade-offs.
It really is. We are in this era of cultural whiplash, and I think we're going to be feeling the aftershocks of this for a very long time.
I agree. That sweater with the comb.
Yeah.
It's really become a symbol of the clumsiness and the tokenism of this corporate era. But the creators, the Jasmines, the Ravens, the Monicas, they represent the genuine talent and the resilience. They are the ones trying to survive and thrive within a system that doesn't always seem to love them back.
And that is the story, isn't it? It's about trying to bloom where you are planted, even if the gardener just got fired and the water's been turned off.
Laughs. That's one way to put it. A very poetic way.
Before we wrap this up, we have to sneak in a massive shout out. We mentioned him right at the top of the show. Nate Bullock, holding it down in Maryland.
Yes, the man who started it all.
Nate, we hope you are navigating those aisles with wisdom, my friend. Whether you're buying the sweater or boycotting the store, we know you're thinking critically about it, and that's what matters.
Absolutely. Stay sharp, Nate.
So here is our final thought for you to chew on this weekend. We've talked a lot today about rebrands. We've talked about supplier engagement versus supplier diversity. We talked about engagement versus equity.
The language games that corporations play.
If a corporation changes the name of a department from diversity to engagement, specifically to avoid a lawsuit, but it keeps the exact same Black-owned products on the shelf, does the intention behind that name change matter more than the outcome of the product being there?
Or are we just settling for a sweater with a comb on it?
Oof. That is the question. Think about it.
And let us know what you think.
The J-Spot is a J. Breyer Allen production, edited by Daniel Reyes and Gisette Garcia.
We'll see you next time.